Hey, welcome to another episode of the Relationship Lab. As you know, it's all things relationships. I'm your host, Alex Evans. But I want to set the table right. So as we have these discussions, it's critical that, we're going to have discussions. We're going to have differences. We may have some disputes. And there may be some dissension. But we want to give people the tools to have these critical conversations with a diplomatic approach, right? Because we always want to walk away and equip people to address these things in a way that's appropriate. And without holding my man hostage here, great guest. We're in the way back machine.
That's it.
Dr. Ron Whitaker. I know him way back then. Prolific academic, prolific writer. I'll let him do an intro to himself. Ron, just give people a snapshot of who you are. Just a snapshot.
I appreciate it, brother. You got me walking on gold. But Dr. Ron Whitaker, professor at Cabrini University. Also, you probably didn't notice, scholar in residence at Duquesne University, too.
Okay, I like
so
that.
in Pittsburgh. And then here's another piece that you didn't know, man. Also, for the last 3 years, pastoring the oldest independent black church in America in Wilmington, Delaware, the Mother African Union Church, affectionately known as the Motherland Nation. So we're busy, brother.
So, well, let's do this. Get people, and we're going to dive in. And today's conversation going to be around black boys and the educational experience as they matriculate through the education system.
That's right.
And you have extensive background in that from a researcher, right? But not only just a researcher, from a practitioner and also experience.
There we go.
Tap in that, Ron. Just give people a snapshot on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, and I appreciate you for setting the context, because what I found even in my work, and again, I give respect to all of my colleagues, but too often what I see is that people are just hiding in their office, right? In ivory tower, as we say, but they're not really doing this thing in real life. And for some folk, even though they may even identify as being of African descent, they feel as though, well, you know what, things are a little bit different for me. I ain't like them. So, within my work, that is true. It is an intersection. It is, okay, what are the scholars talking about this? What is my own research leading me to rethink? But then at the end of the day, what we know, good research should matter in real time.
Yep, I like that.
It should matter in real time. It should matter for those individuals that we would call the least of them. And by that, I'm not pathologizing any particular community. I'm not coming from, a class perspective, because here's the truth. If you identify as being African American or Latinx, if you're in a predominantly white institution, guess what? You may be viewed as the least of them. So we need to think about, okay, what does this look like in real time? But at the end of the day, again, I identify as an African-American male. I grew up in the hood in West Philadelphia, really born and raised. not the Will Smith thing. Winfield, a whole different conversation, But, obviously I have to put my own self, into the story, because, as I say, my dear brother, I didn't need a Trayvon or Mike Brown to let me know about hostile policing. I found that out as a junior, where I got gripped up by a police officer because the police officer was frustrated because I was walking too close to him. Literally choked me in my neck and told me he was going to kill me, right? So these things are real to me, right? It's not something I saw or something I read. This is my story. This is my song.
Well, it's interesting, and I'm a Brooklynite, Philly boy as well, right?
Yeah.
So we have similar backgrounds, and we crossed paths, and we was doing the work, right? And the beautiful thing I like about what you're talking about is you the boots on the ground.
That's it.
Right? So you can enter all rooms and have all conversations, because you don't stay in one place.
That's right.
And then how has, and then we're going to jump into some questions, but this is beautiful, but how has your experience and boots on the ground in the midst of doing mentorship, doing analysis with these young men face to face has impacted your research? And no, I'm gonna stop there. I'm
gonna stop there, man. But here's the beautiful part I like about this. I may see you every 10 years. But it's almost like, where we just left that conversation. So here's what you didn't know, brother. Before I came down here, I was in the great city of Wilmington, Delaware,
Okay.
for the annual King's Conference,
Okay.
right? And what this is a mentorship conference for African American middle school brothers and also high school brothers. So we had 500 young brothers that was in community this morning, right? So I'm one of the panelists, and we're all giving our backgrounds in terms of success, and giving them a little bit of knowledge. But then we did some breakout sessions, right, where it could be a little bit more intimate, and the young kings, as we call them, could kind of ask you questions. So in that room, I'm giving my spiel, but it was a dead spot for a moment. But then we ended, pretty good. But here's the piece: as the young brothers were leaving out of that room to go to lunch, they're all showing me love. But one brother was like, "Hey man, everything that you just said, I was feeling that. But that thing that you said about your house, you really got that, right?" And
Wow.
pause for a moment, and that was such a powerful exchange, because essentially, here's what he was saying to me, right? Or asking me, or challenging me. He was like, yo, essentially he was like, you're not capping me with what you just said. So it always goes back to relationships, right?
Yeah.
It goes back to relationships where at the end of the day, you could give them 3 steps. You could give them a book to read. You could give them websites or social media apps. But at the end of the day, what the brother was really saying is, can I really trust what you were saying?
Yeah.
Can I really believe into what you were saying? Right?
Yeah.
And I think that is the key part. So, for me, no matter how much I read, no matter how much we may even evolve, right?
Yeah.
10 years ago, we was doing this stuff, I don't even know what we was doing, some CDs or whatever.
Yeah.
Then we got a little bit more sophisticated. I think the last time I was in community with you, we was in the studio. Now we had a podcast. So no matter how much things evolve and we embrace the evolution, it still goes back down to relationships.
Well, it's interesting. I think one of the things that when they see, because I think image and representation is critical. But I think when we begin, you and I, or people in this persona, right, come from these environments, right, in these neighborhoods, and then they see us now.
That's right.
And it's almost like, I don't really know if you really grew up like I did.
There you go.
Right? Because they see the Doc now,
Yeah.
the Alex now,
There you
right?
go.
And they
There you
go,
go.
is it real? And then if you're polished, right, and you have navigate all these types of landscapes and the skin we in,
Right.
they like, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
You almost look suburban.
Come on. Pause for a moment. Actually, so it's funny you said that. Like, I'm gonna keep it 1,000. As the young people say, an old head tried to check me, right? So earlier it was like, well, he a professor. Y'all need to get the knowledge, but he don't sound like he a HBCU professor. So it was one of them things. Like, we had a joke, but it's like, hold on, let's pause for a moment, right? Let me set context that even though I am blessed with 5 degrees, even though I have 2 graduate certificates, again, not on no elitist type stuff, but 2 come from Ivy League, institutions. Here's the thing I had to let the brothers know. I literally graduated with a 1.8 GPA. I was told by my high school guidance counselor, you are not college material. But here's the piece, though, right? It had nothing to do with the intellect. It had everything to do with environmental and family factors at the time where, quite frankly, Alex, I'm just trying to survive.
Yeah.
I'm trying to make sure moms can eat. You know what I'm saying? I got to make it happen by any means necessary. So when you have that mindset, school is secondary, right? But the guy, here's the thing. The high school guidance counselor never asked me about those things. The guidance counselor, my high school guidance counselor never did a rewind to 3-4 years earlier when I was in the 7th grade and I was tested as, showing, elite ability. And I was in a program where during my 7th and 8th grade year, they're sending me to college once a month to take courses at a college, not for credit, but I was a part of that group that showed potential, right? So the thing is that you got to let them know all of the story, right?
Yeah.
So that they're not just tripping off of, here's what I read on the bio, or you may come with a double-breasted suit, some Gucci shoes, or whatever the case may be, and you thought that I grew up in some school where I'm spending $30,000, or my parents are spending $30,000 a year to send me to. Nah, you know what I mean? It's more than that.
How did you, and I think our stories are similar, that bias, what was the psychological hurdle that you have faced, and what are those ways that help people fight that institutional bias and a psychological impact in the way that they see you that's narrowly defined?
Yeah. I mean, that's, that's key, and just, I just want to, for clarity, you're basically talking about how people can look at us now but not know everything.
Or like you said, the guidance counselor.
Oh yeah.
Right. So so they see.
Yeah.
So when they see an image, right?
No doubt.
What they do is here's a word black,
Yep.
and then an image comes to mind.
Yep.
Or they see an image, then a word comes to mind. Unachiever.
Yeah. Right.
Not good. Not smart. Right.
Yeah.
And what are and like you just demonstrated in this aspect for the academic component, the psychological hurdles facing that gender bias in the educational system.
Yeah, it was real, man. I remember that day like it was yesterday. You know what I'm saying? And, when we think about our educational system, so currently I'm involved on a lot of initiatives, specifically at the state level that aligns with what we're seeing at the national level. That is in regards to educational diversity, because we know that our schools are still overwhelmingly white, and particularly in the classroom when we're talking about the numbers about 92%, right? So we have to deal with that.
92% what?
92% white in terms of teachers.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what's the gender?
Overwhelmingly white teachers, white female teachers.
Okay, yeah. That's critical.
That's super critical. So, again, I had to deal with that as a 12th grader. And here's the other piece. It was double biases, because I remember the conversation. So not only are you not college material, but she said at best, maybe you could go to a community college.
Wow.
So it's even, if you really think about that, it was biases about community colleges, which I'm a huge proponent of, right? Another conversation for another day. But, here's the piece, man, and when we're talking about, what's super important, it's about no matter how they try to define us, we have to have an anti-movement, right?
Okay.
An anti-movement that affirms who we are, an anti-movement that, provides a safe space for us to be vulnerable, an anti-movement for us to be, filled back up, by those things in our culture that speaks life to us, right? So here's the pause for a moment. Going back to the whole college dynamic, who intervened at that moment? At HBCU.
Wow.
Yeah. So here's the thing, guidance counselor said, you're not college material. And it was a brother that I spoke to who was a guidance counselor on the outside. Actually, my older sister used him. My older sister was like, just talk to him. Even though your grades are terrible, just have, So we had a conversation, and I didn't know he was interviewing me. And he was like, well, what you know about the Bayou Classic? Have you ever heard about that? And I'm giving him the history, and he paused. He said, how would you know about that? He said, because, and I told him, it's because, I've been watching United Negro College Fund,
Might have donated.
You know what I'm saying? I've been watching that for years. Letting them know I'm inspired by them stories. A mind is a terrible thing to waste. I'm watching, the game. I know about all of that. And he was so excited that even though a young brother on paper, my grades was terrible, the attendance was terrible, but we're having a conversation like we're having right now. And he said, this is not the full story. He made a call down to Grambling State, was able to get me into Grambling State.
Wow.
He made a call to UMES, University of Maryland Eastern Shore, was able to get me in there. So here's the thing. Even though I was thrown in the trash can, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The culture said, we got you, we love you.
This guy's too good, because that's one of my questions, right?
Yeah.
Who are the advocates? Who are those sponsors? And who are those coaches that can speak and see potential
There we go, brother.
in somebody, a diamond. I don't even want to say a diamond in the rough, right? But a diamond looking beyond what somebody look like. And one of the things I think that probably astonished him, and you pontificated well, was you was able to pull and have conversation with knowledge.
Yeah.
And he's like, hold on, wait a minute, how do you know this, right? And that changed the whole dynamic.
That changed everything. That opened up so many doors. That gave me even renewed hope. Because as much as we just want to keep it real, I don't care, that's why I'm out here working, that's why I'm doing what I need to do. Nobody want to be told what you cannot do. When you know that you got friends that are going to the next level, you don't want to hear people define you, right? So in that moment, he came and he gave me a lifeline.
Yeah.
Like, you know what, man, look, you know what? If you want to go this route, we got some folk that's going to take care of you.
You know, and this is out to teachers, and we're not saying all teachers are like this, but I believe teachers have to ask themselves the question, why are you here?
Come on.
Your job is to enhance.
Yeah.
Your job is to, number one, do your job, no matter who's sitting in the chair, right? And number two, your job is to help develop.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Those dynamics. If you walk in a classroom and you don't believe, based on how you've been conditioned, that they can't do it, maybe you need to sharpen your sword or get the help that you need or choose another occupation.
Yeah. So here's where I'm at, and I'm currently in an evolution process.
Okay.
Where I'm at that stage in my life where I'm probably growing into both Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, right? You understand? And quite frankly, I think James Cone, he did some great work years ago that really, he did this awesome book of talking about a dream and a nightmare where he really talked about towards the end of their life, they were becoming one person anyhow. But in giving that analogy, I'm suggesting I'm super critical at this point where we just got to call things.
No, you got to
we got to call it what it is. And what you're talking about, again, is relationships and care. But catch this. There's a late educational philosopher by the name of Dr. Nell Noddings, Stanford professor, influential. If you Google anything, education philosophy, she's going to be at like that Mount Rushmore. So she has a theory, catch this, that's talking about how caring is so important in educational context. But here's where she argues towards the end of her life. She argues that we all care about something.
Which is true.
Right? We care about the environment. We care about, what's going on, with economy. But she says caring about and caring for are two different things.
Yeah.
And what we're seeing is that people may have care at the surface, but at the core, that's two different things. So, and even in my own work, known as, a scholar that deals with diversity, equity, and inclusion and anti-blackness and social justice, here's what I'm struggling for. DEI initiatives can't change a person's heart.
No, it can't. Nah.
You get me?
That's just a program.
Yeah. And if we're not careful, we can lie to ourselves because the surveys are good, the evaluations are good, they're doing the webinars, they're doing the book talk, and we think that we hit a home run and we're putting that on our websites and we're saying how we value diversity. But at the end of the day, within those spaces, within the community, again, the least of those are still catching hell.
Well, it's interesting. I have a son, right? And I was a black young male. And I think one of the critical things that, me just growing up, I had a good sense of self, right? And I think that's vitally, in some aspects, you're missing.
Yeah.
So when teachers are taking, because you've been in the classroom at multi-levels, right? When teachers are taking education, and they're going to be their major, whether they're English teacher, math teacher, whatever the case may be. One of the things I notice is that adolescence development component on age-appropriate behavior has a bit disconnect. So this is what I mean by that. So my son, at school, shameless plug, he probably going to be embarrassed. The principal calls me. She says, Mr. Evans, your son said a bad word. Right? And I said, what did he say? She said, wiener. I said, hold on, wait a minute. So I said, can I ask you a question? She said, what? I said, do you have a lot of people in your office every day?
Right.
She said, why do you ask? I said, because if you worried about that word, wiener, to describe that part of his anatomy, I am quite sure there's other words, right?
That's
so this is what I told her. I said, number one, you're not going to play thought cop. You're not going to play word police. And you're not going to noodle my boy. So let's flatten that ground. So when we met, and you're right, it's 4 women in the room. And I went up to the school. I said, this is what my son see every day. And none of y'all look like him, good, bad, or indifferent. I'm not knocking that. I said, so the principal's there. I said, let me ask you a question. I said, what word would you want him to use to describe that part of his anatomy that's acceptable? She had no answer. I said, number 2, and what the context of which he used that word, and what was the context in he used the word? She said, I don't know. I said, so therefore, how can you punish him? You are punitive, not corrective.
There you go. There you
right?
go.
And what he said, a parent walked by a group of boys, 6'7", in a lunchroom, and he says, you can't hit no one in the wiener while playing sports. Wowee. And that impact my son. Now, I'm a person that's well-calibrated, and we had these kind of conversations. And I told my son, I want you to go to and address that principle. I'm going to teach you how to speak for yourself, and then you begin to ask those kind of questions to deal with it. Because I don't want you to walk around saying wiener is a bad, which is incredible, is a bad word. So let me ask you this, Ron, in that story. And I'm sure you have seen many like that. How has the current state of black boys, let me ask you, what's the current state of education when it comes to black boys in today's society?
Let me jump into that, but I think what you just said is so key, right? Because in many ways, you started to live the theory of one of the leaders in this space, right? One of my senseis, Dr. Howard Stevenson, University of Pennsylvania, known all throughout, I would argue, this globe, for his work, particularly in, in black males. Now, not doing a naughty by nature, they talking about OPP. Dr. Stevenson talks about APC. So we got to know the difference between OPP and APC, right? But what he argues is that oftentimes we start with the C in the classroom. I'm trying to correct you.
Yeah.
And in many ways, it's not just a C. I'm trying to punish you, if we're just going to keep it real. Yeah. But he says, we got to start with the A, affection.
Yes.
You know your son.
Yeah.
That's relational.
Yeah.
Right? You know his heart, intentions, and even, again, how y'all raise him, the community, that he's not just going to use a term to be, for shock value or to be disrespectful. And when you have A, the affection, that leads to part number 2, P, protection.
Yeah.
You did that. We need more educators, more teachers to understand that. Before we get to correction, and there are times we have to correct. Let's just keep it real. There are times that we have to correct. And I would argue that even in these times that we're dealing with, there are some family conversations we need to have.
Oh, yeah.
You understand?
Oh, yeah.
Close the room.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Turn the phone off.
Yeah.
Let's deal with us in here. That's correction. But there has to be affection, protection, and correction. So, I just want to affirm you that you lived what his theory suggests and what is so important. But when we're thinking about the state, I believe, of black males in educational context, again, it just goes back to, that powerful image with Public Enemy years ago, where, they're a target, right? You know that album cover. And we see that starting in, preschool all the way up. Not just in just higher education, but here's the thing, Alex, my work has evolved to the spaces of dealing with brothers in corporate America, making 6 figures.
Wow.
$500,000 a year. One brother said this, I'm not going to talk about, the corporation.
Yeah.
Because everybody would know. You've probably been over the last year. At the C-suite, within 5 years, literally was on his hospital bed, high blood pressure, other ailments, could not do it anymore. That much pressure every day, not just a performing, but being in the space, even though you got the title, but people are still viewing you from a deficit perspective.
Ron, you said something the last time we talked. and I remembered, and it was, and I liked the phrase. Use the phrase "the man box."
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Tell people what the man box
Yeah,
is.
yeah. So when we're talking about the man box, here's the thing. I think it's, it aligns. I think, and even a man box, it's gotten a little bit more sophisticated since that last conversation.
Okay.
So on the one hand, it deals with hypermasculinity, right? In terms of, if you, don't align with everything that the man box suggests, then you're a punk, you're a sissy, you're gay. We could go on and on and on. So in the man boxes, you got to be angry. In the man boxes, you got to knock somebody out. In the man boxes, we don't value women. We disrespect women. In the man box, because of our fragile masculinity, we can't even have conversations with brothers that may identify as being a part of the LGBTQ, plus community. In the man box, any form of disrespect, I deal with that, right? So I think it's those social cues of how we need to act in that. I'm telling you, that's a whole nother conversation for another day. We need to put some sisters so we can have that conversation because why do I say that? Because we even have sisters that keep that mess going on.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, I don't want no weak brother.
Yeah.
I don't want no brother that's gonna give me no flowers. I don't want no brother, he too polished. Like let's deal as a case study, let's deal with Russell Wilson. You know how much he gets trashed?
I know. He only got her because he's a football player. First of all.
Well, but even with that, here's the thing,
I know.
even with that, he's a church boy. He's a square.
I know.
Yeah, and this is the stuff.
I know.
Why a good brother that has a family that doesn't mind being a father to someone he didn't biologically birth, and we make a joke out of that.
And you know what's interesting? So, and I think these images, right? Like you said, the man box. I think these images, and I think one of the things when you went back and people see you, you got the you're polished, you're smooth, this, that, and the H. I go and I did work for ex-offenders.
Yeah.
They don't know how much the image, the narrowly defined image, affects them when they see somebody who looks like them.
Yeah.
And now they become so obscure and obtuse, they can't even, they're like, nah, man, you ain't really.
Yeah. But here's the piece too. We also have to give a little bit of grace.
No doubt.
No. Here's why. Let me paint the picture.
Yeah.
It's because we never witnessed Tupac and Biggie turn 50. You catch what I just said?
Oh, yeah.
We keep them at the age of 25.
No doubt.
You get me? And we don't make space for their growth.
Yeah.
But then let me use that example and let's do a case study on Jay-Z.
Yeah.
You understand?
Oh, yeah. I was going to go there, but yeah.
You get me?
Yeah.
We see the growth in the brother where he's not hanging out in the hood. I got to cut some folk off.
Yeah.
I'm doing different types of deals. You understand?
Yeah.
But right now we're in the southern, the southern era. They just had hip hop in a chokehold for a minute now, 20, 25 years. But let's look at a Gucci Mane, someone, that 15 years ago, he was the poster child for a hood dude. But you see him now. I'm a family man, and I didn't change my image. So the point is that because we have so many young brothers that are thinking that I'm going to die at the age of 25, or I got to keep it real, we fail to realize that we're all going to grow.
Yeah.
And with growth comes evolution. You know what I'm saying? And in terms of how we think, how we present ourselves, we're rethinking things that we may have said 10, 15 years earlier, and that's just part of the progress.
Well, it's interesting, and we would love for people when they see that young man at 5, 6, 7, preschool, kindergarten, pre-K, kindergarten, and so on. What role, I think one of the questions as a teacher, because I do a lot of teaching and I do a lot of mentorship as you, what role I'm going to play in this person's life to have them see something I see in them that they don't yet see.
There you go.
And how I can assist and encourage and develop and be a part of that process, right? Because I think that's one of the roles, like you said, the first thing you said, you got to care.
You got to care.
You got to care.
Yeah.
Not about before. And I think another quick story, and I got another question because I want to talk about social media too. My son, and he have seen me do this on quite a few occasions, right? My son and boys are boys, right? So he was at this camp on Cabrini.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not gonna name the camp because people know it. And that's a nice campus, by the way.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And a beautiful St. David's it is. But anyway, so my son is at this camp. And I'm not one of those parents that boys be boys. So his gaming system got broke. So I go up there, and my son runs up to me, and then the counselor's there, and then the other young man's there, and then the guy who was chaperoning him or watching him said, "This is what happened." So the guidance counselor was a woman, by the way. She says, "Well, I've been doing this for 15 years." And I said, "So what does that mean?"
What does it mean? Come on.
That don't mean it's growth in that.
Come on.
So then she said, my son told me the story. He's right there. And she said, he's not telling the truth. Because why would that 19-year-old boy or young man lie? So I said, so who you going to believe? The priest or the altar boy? And she looked at me.
Yeah.
Age do not define, and authority do not define who going to tell the truth. In other words, he 9, he 19. The 9-year-old's lying, but the 19-year-old's telling the truth. And when I gave her who you going to believe, the priest or the altar boy, that changed that conversation.
Changed the conversation.
And what my son do, let me say, what my son have seen me do countless of times, how to deal with it in a way that's diplomatic, but also using confrontation to address and put people in check. And then having the ability to have the conversation without being volatile.
Yeah.
And each one of those instances, people say, well, we can't let this guy come up here, in a sense of don't mess with that kid because this pop going to have me have mental seizures.
That's it.
And Ron, so, and a lot of people, for whatever reason, right, all different factors, how can we help other young men that have fathers and with boys in these schools and they deal with these types of situations? What advice would you give?
Yeah, I mean, what I'm hearing you say, and it's so powerful, brother. And again, it just goes back to the protection, but we got to be in those spaces.
Yeah.
And, essentially we got the police.
No doubt. Hold on.
You understand?
I'm with you.
We have to say this ain't happening. Because as you were speaking and sharing that story, you know what came to my mind?
What's that?
The late Emmett Till. Right? And Emmett Till accused of something. Obviously he didn't do it.
Yeah, for sure.
That was proven by Carolyn Bryan. I lied. But Emmett Till is in his grave.
Yeah.
How many other unknown Emmett Tills have there been? And I'm not just talking about a physical death, but a death in the classroom, a death in society, because they've been accused of something and they never did it, right? And as I'm thinking about Emmett Till, I'm also thinking about Mike Brown's mother, right?
Yeah.
Michael Brown, gunned down in Ferguson, Missouri.
Yeah.
And catch this, and this is actually in one of the chapters in my forthcoming book.
Okay,
right?
okay.
Yeah.
Well, you want to plug this? Do your thing.
Shameless plug. Put some respect on my name. That's the name of the book, right? It argues that educational reforms and educational diversity, those are needed, but until we deal with how the black male body has been viewed, all of those things are just going to continue to be the roller coaster ride. But catch this, Mike Brown's mother that day, minutes after finding out her son was murdered, she's on camera, right? And she's screaming, not just from her grief, but here's what she said that broke my heart. She said, do you know how hard it was for me to get him through that educational system?
Wow.
And for him to graduate. Just graduated a few weeks earlier.
Yeah.
And she's thinking about everything I had to do to get him to this point. And it ends this way. Broke my heart, brother, even to this day. And it talks about why we have to make sure this stuff don't exist.
Let me ask you this, Ryan. If fathers show up, and I'm not saying they don't,
Yeah.
right? Because there's data out there that say black men
Yeah.
spend more time with their kids
No doubt.
than any other group, whether they're in the house
Yep.
or out the house,
Yeah.
right? So if fathers showed up, and it could be job, all kind of situations, how do you think that would impact the teachers or the principal? Because it has to be some partnering, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't want to put, and one thing I don't want to do, I don't want to put all the onus on teachers, because I think people ask them to do a lot,
Yeah.
way beyond, what they're there for,
Yeah.
right? So I don't want to, disparage saying teaching and things of that nature, but how can men help partner with that type of having that type of relationship?
Yeah.
Because one of the things I found out when they knew I was going to be an advocate for my son, it changed the whole dynamics of that interaction.
No, catch this. So that's what I was about to say. It's a game changer. And we have models of success. I want to shout out the school. I'm not going to, put it on camera. I want to protect their confidentiality, protect them, right? But I'm working with this school. Catch this. Every Tuesday and Thursday between the hours of 4 to 5, there is a mentorship program where the fathers in the community are a part of that. Catch this. So in that group, not only are they speaking and making sure homework is good, but there's a space for yoga and mindfulness. Powerful, brother. Where you have some of the OGs, some of the elders, but they're in community with the young brothers, and they're in this space bonding on a whole different level. Even though that school is in a zip code where it's at the bottom, in terms of everything that's bad at the bottom, community-wise, that school is a beacon of light, where it talks, in terms of educational outcomes, in terms of partnerships, in terms of just being a space of hope. And it really aligns with the fact of there is tremendous male presence in that school. First day of school, we're lining up and we have a red carpet, red carpet. Catch this. I'm painting a picture. Red carpet. The young babies are coming into the school for the first time, kindergarten. And who's out there? All of the men. Ooh. We're out there with our pom-poms, right? You got politicians there. You have faith leaders there. You have, guys that are barbers there. You had a boxer there. You got all walks of life, but we're out there giving them high fives, pounding them up. This going to be your best year. We're proud of you, right? And that's intentionality. It's a game changer.
And not just using men, because too often men in schools act as
I know where you go.
The authoritarian and the disciplinarian.
Oh, yeah.
Not as the nurturer.
Come on.
Right? And that's what you're talking about, right? Or the encourager.
Oh, I hear Ice Cube. Can we do a throwback? Y'all need to put that up. Do the throwback. Black cop showing out for the white cop. Yeah, no, absolutely, because that's what we know that, we need more educational diversity. We need more black males in education. Next thing you know, we are the dean of disciplines, which means our job is to choke up little Ray when, Miss Karen, is saying that Ray is acting out of line, and we're running up in there and we're gripping them up, and all we're doing is, just acting as agents of white supremacy.
Yeah.
Come on now.
Yep. It's interesting. You brought up something, and I think you brought up something earlier with the young man being the CEO of this organization. And too often in corporate America, right, we have to carry a certain kind of persona and not fit the narrowly defined construct or stereotype that's been placed upon us, right? And I believe we give people too much power. And I want you to speak about this from that perspective from that person, and also what you see in schools and communities as well. People say, Alex, I can't show up as my authentic self.
Yeah.
I always tell people it depends. You can show up being you. It depends what part of you needs to show up. Because all of you don't need to show up all the time, right? But but I always tell people, one, nobody can be you better than you. And number two, if you begin to strip away the essence, because that's what you're talking about this person, of who you are, you got to ask yourself, is it worth it?
Is it worth it? Yeah. No, I mean, that's key. I mean, so I want to say two quick things on that. Number one, we literally died from this mess. It's been proven.
Yeah.
Racism literally kills us. And if it ain't death, there are other profound health factors proven. Racial battle fatigue, going to the American Psychological Association. Shout out to Dr. William Smith, the foremost authority on planet Earth on racial battle fatigue. One of my colleagues working with him on a project. It's in the American Psychological Association. You know, they cite that, the world's largest psychological association. You know, so that's real. But then let's also pause, because I do think that context matters. So May the 25th, 2020, the killing of George Floyd. We know what happened.
Yeah.
Weeks later, months later, every organization across industries, they made a what? Recommitment to DEI, anti-black racism. Those of us that know the scholarship, we knew what was going to happen. Predictable.
Yeah.
The research suggests this is nothing more than what we call the cheetah effect. Shout out to Dr. Damon Williams. This is his work, where we're very reactionary. Something happens, everybody's embarrassed. We try to put out the fire. Once the fire is put out, now we're dealing with backlash. That's what you see a year later to the present. You see white backlash against what? Critical race theory. You see white backlash against what? Diversity, equity, and inclusion. We see white backlash into what? Diversity hires. That the fact that you may even talk about the autobiography of Malcolm X, you can lose your job for bringing that up in over 18 states right now.
In a free speech country?
Come on now.
In a free speech country? Okay.
Come on. So context matters, right? So in this space of folks saying, I'm tired of being tired, right? It's dangerous work when you now call out the racist structures, our pockets of white supremacy that we know exists, right? Dangerous work. And folk have been targeted because of that.
Yeah, you know what's interesting? And I know you know this. If people would be surprised who diversity has helped the most. And they don't look like us.
Right. But see, pause. And this is where I'm telling you, I had to resign from a couple of them DEI committees, because it's like, you're not going to use me to do this work that ain't really doing no work. And my problem with what happened on the backdrop of May the 25th, 2020, and again, I'm all for diversity. We know the research. We know the diversity. I mean, if we're going to let me just switch gears from a business standpoint, diversity is good for the bottom line. We can go into that, right? And, it's about everybody feeling a sense of belonging. But why are we so afraid to just deal with anti-black racism? That's what we dealt with on May the 25th, 2020. But let's put this here. Let's put this here. Let's put this here. And here's now what we have. We have what's called the Oppression Olympics. Diversity committees fighting because this group is getting more resources than this group. And we pissed off. We frustrated. Why? Because we just cannot deal with anti-black racism. It's something about that we're still afraid of.
How did you see any effects in your interactions when those images of Floyd and impact young black males? Yeah.
I mean, I wrote tons of articles on that piece. So definitely, you feel it within your own self. You feel it. We also have to, again, honor context. Most of us, we was in the crib. Watching CNN all day, you know what I'm saying? Seeing what Fauci was talking about, you know what I mean? Seeing the death rate. So obviously we were connected to that thing. But it also goes to how many times did this happen? There was no video camera, right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't a pause where we could really kind of mobilize and really call that thing out how it needed to be called out. But, again, for myself, there also was this cautionary because I was not, as optimistic. Being someone that's steeped in the scholarship and know that after the emotions, we gonna get it right back down to where we are. Not even right back down, but one could even argue we're worse now than when we were before.
I know. And I'd love for you to speak to this. Do we really know, as men, particularly black men, do we know the power of our presence? The image.
Yeah.
Do we really know that? Right? And we know there's studies, right? That if a kid, it was a study out in North Carolina, it was a study that if a black kid have one black teacher,
There we go.
their graduation rate jumps to like 30%.
Yeah.
Just one.
Just one.
Just the presence.
Just one.
And I was working with the NFL, but I was saying, do we know the power of our presence?
There we know the power of our presence. That's so key. Catch this, right? That same study also gave, I believe if we're talking about the same study, but also talked about if a black man is in a classroom or in a school, everybody benefits.
No.
Everybody benefits. So Asa Hilliard, what would he argue? That power is the ability to define reality and to have others to respond to that definition as if it was their own. Right? So when we truly know our power, the sky's the limit. When we truly know our power, catch this is controversial, perhaps we'll go back to saying we want to build our own institutions. When we truly know our power, instead of, dealing so much with this company needs to, open up space for us. And yeah, that's important, but it's also both and. Let's go back to building Black Wall Street.
Hey, Ron, speak about the Dion effect.
Man, come on. That's another show for another day.
Just a tidbit, man. We'll bring you back.
Must be the money.
It must be the money. And let me say it this way. It's he said something, and I think what happens with image and his personality, right? And people who know him, he really cares, right? And he has a high standard. He's old school. And and I told my son to watch him. One of the most powerful things he said, "What makes you think view of me is the view I have of myself?"
That's right.
And do not let my confidence get in the way of your insecurity. And what I mean by we carry too much, right? And the other thing is people get caught up in his personality and, the jewelry, the accessories, and all that other stuff, but not the substance of who he is, holding people to a standard.
There you go. And Dion, let me just say this. Also, let's shout out Dion's mother, right?
No, wait, no doubt.
Who spoke life and we gotta always celebrate.
Yeah.
As Tupac said, you are appreciated. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But when we think about Dion, substantive to the core.
Yeah.
There should be classes on Dion. Here's the thing. I also have an MBA, right? So when it was time for me to do my marketing work, I did Dion as a case study because most people don't understand that whole primetime persona, what that was all about. It was about, I'm about to go to the NFL and you ain't gonna treat me like a slave. He did the rundown of who got paid in the NFL and one of the cornerbacks. So he's like, nah, I'm gonna change this up where you understand not only you getting talent, but you getting everything else and you gonna pay me for it. Marketing genius.
And Bobby Bowden
Come on.
took FSU, Florida State University players, the Seminoles. Guess where he took them?
Where?
The church.
Yeah, come on.
See, people
Come on. Yeah.
requirement, right? And how has and what role can the church with after school studies impact these communities and being a partner?
Present, man. Look, you brother, we got to do a part 2. One part 2 coming up, man. I'm looking, man. We got to do a part 2. We got to do a part 2. But catch this. You know, when I'm in a community in Wilmington, Delaware, oftentimes they're saying, you the first pastor that wanted to work with us, right? Or we were wondering how come other churches, wasn't, interested in our work, and you gave us hope. So the thing is that we got to understand that the true work is not indoors, it's outdoors, right? And if we're going to talk from a Christian perspective, the majority of Jesus' ministry was outside, not inside. You understand? We get it twisted. So me as a faith leader, here's what I say. If we want them in here on Sunday, that means we got to be out there Monday through Saturday. In solidarity, in community. And guess what? When I walked in today, I didn't need no armor bearer. I didn't need the music. I'm just one of the homies, right? Or one of the OGs just coming in, just sitting next to the barber, just sitting next to the boxer, just sitting next to, cats that is just doing some great thing, the young entrepreneurs. And it's like, look, I'm not trying to big time you. I'm trying to share my knowledge, but we're in this thing together, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm sorry. It's interesting. I was going to say that people say outreach. I said, do you know what the word reach means? You got to be within distance.
Come on.
To touch them.
Come on.
You can't say I want to do outreach and you're sitting in the building, man. Me and you been in the streets, man. We go way back in these schools, right?
Yeah.
Character development, the whole 9 yards, teaching all these critical conversations, giving people hope. It's for the Urban Family Council back in the day. It was like, so, and you said it, community, because community, family, and then schools, right?
Yeah.
And then all those, other activities. If you have those fundamentals and those institutions or those environments function at an optimal level from a health perspective, that will impact them. And also, I want you to ask this as we close. When the schools know, and the leaders within the school, because I'm always saying about partnering, right? And you have a right, and you don't have to ask for a right if your kids go to that school. If they know that they are partnering with families and other outside organizations, how would that change, or have you seen it change the dynamics when it comes to how our young men matriculate through the educational system?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in short, some of our elders would say it like this: it takes a village, right? And that's a part of the village where, you have to develop like this comprehensive ecosystem. We call it, on the academy side. So I'm going to give you, in close, I'm going to give you what the language I'm using as an educator, but then also as a faith leader. As an educator, what we're calling it is SAC partnerships, schools in partnership with the academy. That's the A, right? Meaning the universities, but also involved with the community. That's the C, SAC partnerships, where, if done right, it creates an infrastructure, right? It creates an infrastructure. Okay, well, here's some research being done at the university. Let's see what this may look like in practice. The schools are saying, well, this is good, but here's what we're seeing. So they're in concert, but at the course, the community, right? Those folks that's on the ground is saying, this is all good, but this is what our babies is going through day in and day out. Here's what's going on. We're struggling, with making sure that they have a safe place to be in fellowship after school. Here's what we need. That's the expertise. Everybody has to be in conversation, but most importantly, it cannot be a hierarchy. On the flip side, giving you this as a faith leader, brother, in many ways, they're trying to think I'm a heretic. You know what I'm saying? Because we're coming out and we're doing things differently. Where here's the thing, man, I don't want to have the same 20 people across 10 different ministries. You get me? Here's what I'm saying. We're experiencing explosive growth in our church numbers. You know what I'm saying? all types of crazy stuff in a great way is going through. But here's the thing, is because I'm saying our outreach ministry, we going to partner with one of the seminal organizations in the city of Wilmington, Delaware. They have the resources to really do this outreach stuff. You understand what I'm saying? You need somewhere to eat, boom.
Yep, there you go.
That's the organization. You need a job, that's the organization.
Yep.
You need, mental health support, that organization has that. So guess what? Catch this. Every Wednesday, that organization is at our church. And it's open for our members and the community. Because they got as the young people would say, they the plug. So if they the plug and not Sister Mary, let Sister Mary, we love you, but they, you know what I'm saying? We gonna work with them. We gonna work with them. And that's just my mindset in terms of we're never going to stray away from our core spiritual and theological foundations, but there's some other folk that's doing some stuff. I'm really going, this is definitely going to be a part two. Catch this. And when we're talking about black males, this is why we're in community.
Yeah.
Catch this, man. I did a panel discussion last week. It's a documentary called Black Boys, going all across the nation. You can Google it. So I was one of the panel of experts for the film screening in Wilmington. So in that room that night, it was a lot of Muslim leaders, Muslim brothers. Man, we love everything that you said, Doc, we love what you're about. How can we work together? I said, ain't nothing, in the words of Snoop, ain't nothing but a G thing. Let's exchange emails.
Yep.
Theologically, we may not, agree, but here's the truth. I don't agree with brothers that claim to be of the same faith.
We want it.
That's a whole nother thing. But what we do agree upon is, we tired of the killings. What we do agree upon is, we're tired of unemployment and underemployment. What we do agree upon is we need to make change. So let's work together.
I'm going to tell two stories. And the reason why I'm telling these stories, because I want to show people that, people can do these things as a father and an advocate, right? And so another time, my son, he's got a lot of personality, and he would talk in class, right? And, being a comedian, whatever the case may be. So, one of the times I told him, I said, Caleb, I know you want to be funny. I know you want to talk. But think about who other education or other students in that class you are interrupting, right? And think about if I stood in front of your Xbox and blocked you from playing the game. That's how the teacher feels.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
So not only we have to check even our kids' behavior because they're there to do a job, and anytime you interrupt that, you interrupt other people. So if you're saying they're your friends, don't interrupt their learning experience in the educational thing. The second thing I've taught my son, he was in high school, and he went up to the teacher, and the teacher said something to him that was whatever. So he came home. And he's like, Dad, the teacher said this because I'm black. The teacher said, I'm like, well, I don't know if you know all that. It could be. And the teacher said it was because of this, that, and the other, right? And I said, look, this is what I want you to do. I will bet you that teacher probably was having a bad day, which because they have bad days.
They have bad days. That's right.
Right.
That's right.
I don't think it was personal. And I don't think it was because you was black, right? Because I don't want everybody at times to view everything. Somebody's doing this because I'm black too. That's a whole nother thing. So I said, this is what you do. Go to the teacher tomorrow and pull him aside and say, hey, I'm here to get educated. And I came up to you and I asked you X, Y, Z. And the way in which you conversed with me, it had an impact on me.
Yeah.
I said, I'm telling you that teacher is going to look at you totally different. And the teacher says, you know what? I apologize.
That's right.
I was having a bad day.
That's right.
So we have to equip our kids at times on how to negotiate that, and don't always look at it that they doing it because they wrong or they don't like me or whatever the case may be, helping them calibrate and teaching them how to have that conversation with somebody who's in authority from a teacher perspective and have that symbiotic relationship with them. And I told him, most kids or young men ain't gonna go say that. He is gonna look at you totally different now. And he's gonna go out his way and say, wow. And the teacher says, you know what? I really appreciate you coming to me. Because if you go in the now I said, now if you don't work it out, then I come up there. But we because I knew. But the teacher was like, wow, you know. And then they had a great relationship, and that's some of the things we even have to get equipped, right? That's what we talk about solutions, and then teach our kids to go have the conversations with the principal, with the teacher, whatever the dynamic, in a way that's respectful, but learning how to speak for yourself and put things contextually, saying, yo, it's your job to teach me.
That's right.
And what you done impacted me. And I say teachers in a respectful way, unless they're crazy, but they'll look at you differently. So that's the other part I want to encourage people to do, equipping their kids to go have these conversations with the teachers and authority and during their educational experience. You got any closing remarks?
Man, look, it's just been great. We got to do a part 2, a part 3, a part 4. But no, I mean, at the end of the day, brother, we got to continue these conversations, not just the doom and gloom, but as you said, what we know works. And at the core, even what you just said, just comes down to relationships. But also, you know, the other piece that I'm really intrigued about is that we have to develop counter movements. So, man, I'm gonna put a shameless plug. We got to put some people up on it. I'm saying a shameless plug in terms of we got to do this again. We got to put some people where we put a movement together. You know, in the spirit of Black Panthers, in the spirit of civil rights. You know, in the spirit of these contemporary movements, to say this is how we're gonna move because it's too important to fail.
Appreciate you, my brother. And likewise, and we're going to bring it apart too, because I want to talk about the other ethnic groups and how those other boys are impacted, and then seeing relationships they have with people from a different race.
That's it.
You know, because that has a role in that, and we'll do part 2 on that. Hey, listen, we appreciate this. I appreciate Dr. Ryan. You heard he's thorough. Check his stuff out. He's going to tell you how you can contact him. But until we meet again, you know, check out, you know, fourmankind.net. Our podcast will be loaded on YouTube, on the channel, and you'll see us on Instagram. And once again, we thank you for tuning in and having some fun. And as always, we want to give people the diplomatic tools so when they have these discussions and disputes or differences, it doesn't always have to descend into argument and being combative.
There we go.
Right, and we want to do this in the right spirit. So Ryan, just close us out and just tell people how they can contact you.
I appreciate you, my brother. Again, thank you for allowing me to be on the couch in the community in relationship with you. You could get at me at dr.ron.whitaker on Instagram, or you know, just do a Google search, American Program Bureau. You'll see my information, and looking forward to continuing.
And that book, right? You gotta
put some respect on my name.
And the document. Hold on. Not the document. the document. The doc that's coming out too. That's the other way we your panelists on that.
Yeah. The Black Boys Black Boys documentary. Yeah, so that's dope too. Just do a Google search with that, and you know, it's also on IG, Black Boys documentary. So just do that, and again, man, this we got to continue this.
That's it.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks once again. Peace out. We out. You know how to get us.
Peace.